When we think of the Renaissance, we often think of Italy, of Leonardo da Vinci or Michelangelo. But what if the Renaissance actually began in the north of Europe, more precisely in Flanders, in today's Belgium? In the early 15th century, almost a century before Michelangelo completed the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, a quiet revolution was unfolding in the workshops of Flemish painters in cities like Bruges and Ghent, a revolution that would help shift Europe from the Middle Ages into the Renaissance. These were the Flemish Primitives. Their work literally changed the course of European art and of European history. Hi, I'm Bruno, a passionate traveler and history buff exploring Europe's most fascinating places. I'm not a professional historian, but I love digging into the history behind landmarks and events. Here I share my personal take on key moments in European history, shaped by the places I visited and the questions I keep asking along the way. Let's start from the beginning. The term Flemish primitives does not imply that these artists were primitive, unsophisticated, or simple. It actually identifies them as originators and precursors of a new artistic tradition that marked the beginning of the Northern Renaissance. Yes, the subjects they painted were very religious. This was still the Middle Ages after all, and God had to be present in any painting. But how they painted, that was a revolution. Until the Flemish primitives, painted figures were standard, stylized, symbolic, with no originality or individuality, like religious icons. Then, as of the first half of the 15th century, for the first time, we start seeing real people in sacred scenes, individuals with emotional depth, with personality, with even psychological presence. They're not idealized icons, they're human beings. They almost move, they almost live. And that shift from divine ideal to human reality is the very essence of Renaissance humanism. These painters also reimagined the space around their subjects. Religious stories were no longer floating in abstract, symbolic backdrops. All of a sudden, they were happening in real places, in homes, in streets, in landscapes you could walk through. Suddenly, you can see light, shade, depth, reflections, even weather. Look closer, and you notice how carefully the painters observe the world. The way fabric folds, the gleam of metal, the transparency of glass. These weren't just religious paintings, they were studies of life. Their obsession with detail, with nature, with texture, wasn't decorative. It reflected a new idea that the world was worth studying, and that truth was found in observation. This, too, was part of the humanist revolution. Instead of looking up to the heavens for all answers, people were starting to look around, at each other, and at the world itself. And look who's paying for these masterpieces. Not just kings or the clergy, but a new social class, wealthy merchants from Bruges, one of the richest cities of the known world at the time, who were controlling trade across Northern Europe. They wanted to see themselves in the art they commissioned, literally. For the first time, patrons were being painted into sacred scenes. And for the first time, artists were signing their works, claiming ownership and authorship. This shift in patronage from church to commerce was another sign that Europe was changing. So, what do we have? Real people, full of emotions, real settings, full of light and perspective, a focus on nature, observation, and individual presence, and a new class of people shaping the world and the art in their image. All of this adds up to something monumental. The Flemish primitives helped move Europe from a world where God was central to one where humans were. And that, at its core, is what the Renaissance is all about. In fact, long before Da Vinci picked up a brush, the seeds of the Renaissance were already blooming in Flanders. That's one reason why the great Italian masters admired the Flemish painters, because they saw in them the beginnings of a new era, the precursors, an era where art, faith, and human experience were no longer separate, but deeply, beautifully intertwined. So next time you see a painting from the Flemish Primitives, remember, you're not just looking at religious art. You're looking at the moment Europe began to change, one brushstroke at a time. Because the Renaissance didn't begin in Florence, it began up north in Flanders. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me keep creating more content like this. Please also feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. And if there's any particular topic in history you'd like me to explore in a future video, please let me know. I'm always open to new ideas and suggestions. Thanks again, and see you in the next one.